Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. It's election season in Russia. Finally, Putin votes online in a Russian presidential election. In Russia, they have one man, one vote, in that there's only one man who gets a vote. You can either agree with him or you can go to prison. Your choice, 2024. So here's the clip from Russian state media showing Putin voting online. Watch this clip and let me know, is there anything strange about this clip? The screen says, "Congratulations, you voted." But in this clip, Putin only clicks the mouse one time. It's impossible to vote with only a single mouse click. Even if his secretary pulled up the page and entered his information, he would still have to click to select himself for president and then click twice to submit the ballot. So this was the only vote that mattered in Russia, and Russia faked it. And for fun, let me show you Shoigu and Gerasimov voting as well. The last 2 months, there's been a lot of speculation if Gerasimov was dead or either fired. He's not been appearing next to Shoigu during the MOD's daily briefings. But there he is, still alive and in uniform, for now. So how is this election going? This is going to be an election over 3 days with a hybrid voting system. You can either vote online or you can vote in person at a polling location. We're currently on day 2 of the election. And already, parts of the far east of Russia are reporting 100% voter turnout on the first day of the election. Why even have an election over 3 days when you can get 100% voter turnouts in remote areas on the first day of the election? That's totally legit. Russia's online voting system briefly crashes on the first day of the election. Russia's online voting system briefly crashed on Friday, with independent election observers saying the likely cause was huge numbers of workers being forced to vote. Of course, if you work at a government job or like a school or a hospital, as soon as you showed up to work on Friday, your boss sat you down at a computer and told you you had to vote for Putin, and wasn't going to let you go back to your job until you voted for Putin. So the website crashed on Friday morning. What else is going on? Russians set fire to at least 4 polling stations on the first day of the election. And yes, there's videos online. I'll link these down below if you want to see some Russian polling locations on fire. Obviously, not everyone in Russia is going to accept these results. They're not happy with the lack of choice and the lack of freedom to express dissent and support opposition. So what can you do aside from setting a polling location on fire? My favorite video is this one. I'm going to link this down below. I don't know if I can show it. But this woman walked into the voting booth, lit a Molotov cocktail on fire, and then threw it out over the top of the voting booth onto the ballot box, and then walked out of the booth pretending like she didn't know who threw the Molotov cocktail. It's a pretty spectacular video. And some Russians are protesting by lighting their ballots on fire in the ballot booth. This ballot says, "Bring my husband back." There's no audio, but this is somebody in a polling location lighting their ballot on fire in protest. Official pens provided to polling stations in Russia contain disappearing ink. Whistleblowers from Kursk and Rostov-on-Don have reported that special pens for use in the weekend's presidential elections contain ink that disappears when heated. So here's the video of the disappearing ink. So in the event you fill out your ballot incorrectly, one of Putin's poll workers that evening will correct your ballots. Russians dump green dye into ballot boxes in at least 7 regions. Lots of videos online, mostly women, trying to dump ink or paint into the ballot boxes to ruin all of the ballots. I'll show you a little bit of some of these clips. Some people are saying that these are Navalny supporters deliberately using green dye to show their support for Navalny. Here's another clip. Once again, all these polling locations are under CCTV, so they're capturing these crimes on video. But here's a Russian woman, once again, dumping ink into the ballot box. She then just stands there waiting to be arrested. She knows she's not getting away. Here's another Russian woman who attempted to try and put ink in a ballot box, but this man standing next to it stopped her. Good try, almost. Here's an elderly Russian woman who dumped blue paint, once again, into a ballot box. This is the only form of protest you can do in Russia. And it's mostly women who, honestly, at this point, have more courage than the men of Russia. Dead men voting. All Russian soldiers in Ukraine eligible to vote for Putin, whether they're dead or alive. So according to Ukrainian intelligence, what Russian commanders are being told is that all of their troops fighting in Ukraine can vote, but they don't have to vote in person. They don't have to show their face. All they have to do is show their documentation and they're eligible to vote. Meaning, their commanders, their platoon commanders or whoever, can just submit all the paperwork and all the votes for their soldiers, whether they're alive or dead. Soldiers who died probably a year ago are having their paperwork submitted and their votes cast for Vladimir Putin. And I'm not joking, this is how much Russia is trolling the world. But they sent a member of the Moscow City Duma to inspect the election process. And this man is blind. You can see from his glasses, he cannot see. State media took these pictures of him observing the election process, and this member stated, he personally witnessed the openness, transparency, and security of voting and did not see any violations in the election. This man is blind, and this computer isn't even turned on. Also on task, this is Russian state media. They're kind of making fun of claims of voter irregularities. And they showed this clip of a Russian robot trying to vote in the election.
Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте. Я бы хотел проголосовать.
К сожалению, вы не сможете принять участие в голосовании. Нужен человеческий паспорт, а не технический.
Очень жаль. Надеюсь, скоро роботов уравняют в правах с людьми.
Всего доброго. До скорой встречи.
Спасибо. До свидания.
Spasiba, do svidania. Silly robot. Votes are for dead people. And it gets weirder. Russia's state media coverage of their own election. One polling location had a cardboard cutout of Tucker Carlson, so everyone can get a picture with their favorite American journalist. Barbie showed up with her daughter to vote in the election. And this clip is of a married couple choosing on their wedding day to go to the ballot box and vote for Vladimir Putin. On their most special and important day, they know what really matters is casting a vote for Putin. It's a 3-day election. These people could have voted on either Saturday or Sunday, but this is the level of propaganda that Russian state media is putting out. So, of course, the European Union and NATO say Russian elections are not free and fair. Victory in the March contest will allow Putin to stay in the Kremlin at least until 2030, making him the longest ruling Russian leader since Catherine the Great. So once Putin is reelected, if he stays alive the next couple years, he will have controlled Russia longer than Joseph Stalin did. But we all know what is really going on. The real reason why Putin changed Russian elections to be 3 days is so at the end of every day, it's easier for the poll workers to stuff the ballots. So this is polling location 912 in the Novgorod region. The polls closed at 8, and by 8:20, you can see through the window the poll workers shoving in more ballots into the boxes.
Выбрасывать бюллетени в приемник. За кого интересно? Время 20 минут 9. Участок закрыт.
The lights are on, the blinds are up. These people aren't even trying to hide it. They're just doing what they're told to do. So I already know the election results. We've got voted for Putin twice, and then a very small percentage that fell out a window. Let's move on. Scholz and Macron meet in Berlin to mend Ukraine rift. Germany's European partners have been frustrated by Scholz's refusal to provide its long-range Taurus missiles to Ukraine, despite urgent calls from Kyiv. So I don't know what happened in the last week, but it appears that France has finally woken up. Macron gave a very important speech, and he said, "Peace in Europe requires preparation for war." In an interview, Macron also reiterated that the option of sending Western troops to Ukraine should remain open. So I think Macron had a very good working relationship with Putin. He actually liked the guy, and I think initially Macron was convinced, when Russian soldiers weren't greeted as liberators, that eventually Putin would fall back to his own territory or a scaled-back amount, and then try to normalize relations. France wanted to keep their options open in the event that Russia wanted to repair this relationship. But given that it's been 2 years and all of the intelligence available to the West is screaming that these wars will never end, that Putin is planning to attack the Baltics and Poland, Macron has to do something. And I'm very excited for France to become engaged. And to put this in perspective, let me share with you my analytics. This is a breakdown of my audience, the people who watch my videos. 32% of my audience is American. That makes sense. America's a big country. 13% are from the United Kingdom. 8.8% are from Canada. 7% are from Australia. And 4.2% are from Germany. Where the heck is France? And it's all the way down here at 0.7%. Now, obviously, because I'm speaking English, that means more English-speaking countries will watch my content. But more people in Belgium watch my videos than in France. So I think the tone comes from the top, and with French politicians, they've been trying not to engage in rhetoric that makes it sound like Europe's at war. But after 2 years, we can no longer pretend. And I'm excited to see France finally living up to their size, their potential for helping Ukraine. They've been doing their part, but they obviously can do more. And I want to read excerpts from Macron's speech that he gave to the French people. If Ukraine falls, our security will be at risk. If Russia continues to escalate, if the situation worsens, we must be ready, and will be ready. To be prepared, we will make the necessary decisions to ensure that Russia never wins. He then states that victory in this war, defeat for Russia, means that Crimea must be returned to Ukraine. The internationally recognized borders of Ukraine must be restored. Today, for there to be peace in Ukraine, we must not be weak. So we must soberly look at the situation and with determination, will, and courage, say that we are ready to achieve our goal by the means that ensure Russia will not win. The responsibility lies with us. If Russia wins, how will the lives of the French change? We will no longer have security in Europe. Who could think for a second that President Putin, who has respected none of these restrictions and none of his commitments, would stop at what he has achieved? The security of the French is at stake. These are our vital interests. We have helped Ukraine to resist, but now the context on Ukrainian soil is changing. For them, the situation is much more complicated. Russia is becoming tougher internally and is stepping up its attacks. We just need to be clear. We must not allow Russia to win. Let me introduce you a new politician in Europe. This is Benjamin Haddad. He's a member of France's National Assembly. And in 2 years, I've never shown a clip of a French politician before, aside from Macron. So this guy's pretty sharp. I like what he's saying. Let me play for you this clip in which he's talking about France re-engaging with Eastern Europe.
And there's so much we can do, especially in military and defense issues with Poland. It's a country that is taking strategic issues very seriously. For France, the relationship with Germany is of course existential, and even when we have disagreements, and we do have disagreements, that doesn't mean it threatens the relationship. Of course not. I've been an MP for close to 2 years now. I think Berlin is the city which I visited the most. Because we care so much for historical reasons about this relationship. But it should not be exclusive. And I think sometimes we in France have made it a little bit exclusive and not invested enough in Central Europe and the Baltic states. And that clearly is changing. President Macron, in his first term, was the first French president, I think, to visit the 27 countries of the European Union, to go to the Baltic states. You've heard his speech in Bratislava last year, where he talked about the missed opportunity we had with the region. So I think there's a desire also to really reinvest with these members that have felt a little abandoned in facing Russia for years.
This guy's pretty sharp. I really like him. I hope he does more interviews. So France, Germany, and Poland pledged more weapons for Ukraine in a show of unity. At the Weimar Triangle meeting in Berlin, the leaders of France, Germany, and Poland agreed to boost Ukraine's military support with more weapons, expanded equipment production, and a rocket artillery coalition. And check out this quote from Donald Tusk. He's the Prime Minister of Poland. This is what he said on Twitter. The reports of the Weimar Triangle's death are greatly exaggerated. This is a cool picture, but this is actually a Mark Twain quote. In 1897, Mark Twain is said to have read his own obituary and then remarked, "The reports of my death are greatly exaggerated." But I'm all for this, whatever is happening. The European Union pumps money into explosives in push to up shell production. So the European Union just allocated 500 million euros to increase their capacity to make more ammunition. Specifically, we need more artillery shells. North Korea should not be outproducing the entirety of the European Union. So, if it requires the money, I'm glad they found it. Let's make this happen. But what about the Americans? House Speaker Johnson says he expects to take up Ukraine aid with Democratic votes. U.S. House Speaker Johnson says he expects to take up Ukraine aid through a suspension calendar. So Mike Johnson's a liar, and if he says he's trying to help Ukraine, he's not. All he could do is schedule a simple up or down vote on the Senate's bipartisan bill, and Ukraine will get $60 billion in U.S. aid. So what he's trying to do with House Republicans is craft something that looks good, but is actually very bad. Republicans have been talking about a loan, a $60 billion loan to a country that's currently being destroyed. And he's talking about this suspension calendar, which would require a 2/3 majority. So Johnson's trying to make something that he knows will not pass, that will not get 2/3 in the House. So he can finally say, look, I'm trying to help Ukraine. I allowed a vote on this thing that isn't very good, that needed 2/3, and the Democrats wouldn't give me enough votes to make it pass. And even if it somehow passes the House, if it's a different version, it's got to go back to the Senate. It would require 60 votes. Where I'm going with this is Johnson is still stalling. He's still trying to come up with bureaucratic tricks in the legislative process to kill military aid for Ukraine. The better and simpler option: House Democrats aim to get U.S. aid to Ukraine passed next week. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has set an ambitious deadline to get Biden's bill and the $60 billion in aid for Ukraine passed by the House before the Easter vacation. So because this is Congress and they don't really do any work, Speaker Johnson's going to give another 2-week vacation to everyone in Congress. He gave a 2-week vacation in February and a 2-week vacation in December and a 2-week vacation in November. So the Polish President Duda went to Congress to speak with Johnson and Hakeem Jeffries. The discharge petition, I think, is still at around 180 signatures. Members of Congress can't sign it when Congress isn't in session. And Congress takes a 4-day weekend every weekend, so the House will be back in session on Tuesday. We'll see if we can get the 218 signatures required. You guys get where I'm going with this. We'll see. We'll see if Hakeem Jeffries can get 218 signatures on the discharge petition, and potentially we could get this $60 billion in aid passed next week if just like 15 House Republicans cooperate. Another quick story I have to quick mention: Ukrainian intelligence carried out a strike on the largest oil refinery in Russia's Kaluga region. There is a video online. I'll link it down below if you want to see what it looks like when a drone slams into a Russian oil refinery. And here's the track record from the last 2.5 months. Of Russia's 30 existing oil refineries, Ukraine has struck or damaged 14 of them. These strikes are never going to end. It's going to take months, it might take years, but eventually Ukraine is going to knock all these oil refineries offline. Russia lost 12% of its oil refinery capacity in a single day. What's the impact? And we're going to know by the end of this year. Once we get past Putin's election, we're going to see what the real Russia is when it comes to brutal crackdowns, censorship, mobilization, and Russia's currency if the central bank stops buying it with foreign reserves. Russia doesn't have the money to keep buying their own currency to stabilize it. So hyperinflation is coming, economic turmoil is coming, Ukraine knows what they're doing, and this isn't going to end well for Russia if they keep this war going. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Portugal has joined the Czech-led initiative to provide Ukraine with artillery shells, pledging 100 million euros. Thank you so much to the people of Portugal. Sweden will allocate 30 million euros once again to the Czech-led initiative for the artillery shells. Sweden has also announced they're sending some marine boats for use by the Ukrainians. Thank you so much to the people of Sweden. Greece is leading negotiations to purchase ammunition from Czechia and then transfer it to Ukraine. Greece also announced a large military aid package. This is a week after Russia almost killed their prime minister while he was visiting Odesa. Thank you so much to the people of Greece for helping Ukraine. The final clip I want to share, unfortunately, is not a feel-good one. In the city of Odesa, Russia committed a double tap. In war, what this is you target and bomb civilians. When first responders and medical care workers then show up to help people, you bomb it again. This is a war crime. Russia doesn't care. And 20 people were killed in this double strike event in Odesa, killing a lot of first responders. There's pictures and videos online. I just want to share one story of one victim. This is from the accounts of Nate Mook. He's a foreign aid volunteer in Ukraine. And he wants to share the story of one of his friends who died in this Odesa attack. The man's name was Sergey, and he was the deputy mayor of Odesa. Civilians were killed by the Russians. He responded to the scene to help himself, and then the Russians killed him. Here are some pictures, but I want to share this video from last year in which Nate met up with Sergey to help with humanitarian relief for the citizens of Odesa.
So it is a huge task for the city of Odesa to prepare for 1 million inhabitants. So just incredible work that Sergey and his team are doing. And of course, we thank you for working with us.
Incredible our together work, because we are our friends, and with your help, we really feel that our people will be protected, and we're ready to help our neighbors, two neighbor cities who now on the front. So it's really very, very important help for us, and with your help, we will win. We together will win.
Thank you so much, Sergey. And thank you to all of you for all your support. And this, you see some of it in action. So in addition to our meals with restaurants, making sure that cities like Odesa are ready and have what they need in terms of the food for the people. So
thank Nate, thank you, your amazing team. Thank all people who help us. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. We'll keep you updated.
Sergey gave his life for his country. I don't think he would have done anything differently. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.